Welcome to A News. I'm Omar Taslim and you're watching Turkey's Diplomacy. On today's episode, A News editor Mustafa Kocakinar and political analyst Javed Rana will be joining me to discuss the rising tensions between nuclear-armed neighbors India and Pakistan. We'll analyze the reasons behind the current issues, the fight against terrorism, and international reactions to the attack in the Indian-occupied Kashmir. But before we begin our discussions, let's take a look at this news report.
The April 22 attack in India's Jammu and Kashmir territory was the deadliest on civilians in nearly 2 decades in the country. But the area has long been a source of tension between India and Pakistan. They both claim the Himalayan region, and it has been the site of multiple wars, insurgencies, and diplomatic standoffs. Here's a look at some of the causes.
India takes her place as a free and independent dominion in the British...
Colonial India was partitioned into 2 states at the end of British rule in 1947, mainly Hindu India and mostly Muslim Pakistan. Between Pakistan's northeast and India's northern tip is Kashmir.
Pakistan's argument has always been that because there were Muslim majority, especially in the Kashmir Valley, therefore this territory should have naturally come to Pakistan.
That's Aisha Siddiqa, a war studies senior fellow at London's King's College. She said India's claim of Kashmir is also ideological.
The Congress government, Indian Congress government, was secular. And their argument was that giving this territory to Pakistan on the basis of religious identity would mean that, that would challenge India's existence as a secular state, which could have both Muslims and Hindus living together.
In the end, the region was divided up. India had the Kashmir Valley, Ladakh and Jammu, which was given semi-autonomous status. Islamic Pakistan controls Azad Kashmir or Free Kashmir and the northern areas. In addition, China runs Aksai Chin. Kashmir has been scarred by multiple conflicts over the years, including 3 full-blown wars between India and Pakistan. In 1989, separatists in Kashmir began an insurgency against what they saw as heavy-handed rule by India. India poured troops into the region, and tens of thousands of people have since been killed. India has repeatedly accused Pakistan of arming and training militants. Pakistan denies those claims, saying it offers only moral and diplomatic support. Kashmir Resistance, also known as the Resistance Front, has claimed responsibility for the April 22 attack. In 2019, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government revoked Kashmir's semi-autonomous status and reorganized the state's administrative territories. Officials said the move would better integrate the region with the rest of the country. Pakistan strongly objected, downgrading diplomatic ties with India. But Indian officials say there have since been fewer large-scale attacks and an increase in tourist arrivals, though targeted killings of civilians and security forces continue to be reported. Siddiqa expressed concern over the renewed tensions between the 2 nuclear states.
What Kashmiris are very tired of is repression and state control on both sides. They want to live with dignity without fear and without presence of militaries on both sides.
After the April attack at the popular tourist site, crowds took to the streets. Among them, Mukhra Javed.
We just want to say that terrorism doesn't have a particular religion, and we as common Kashmiris stand for peace and will always stand for peace.
This doesn't represent Kashmir, she added. It doesn't represent us.
Welcome back to the program. A very warm welcome to my guest, Javed Rana, who's joining me from Islamabad, and Mustafa Kocakinar, our A News editor. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Mustafa, I'll start with you first. Tell me about the latest developments that have been taking place between India and Pakistan. Why is there so much tension? What are the leaders saying? What's the latest situation?
Umar, I think if we want to understand current geopolitical tensions between Pakistan and India, I think we have to scrutinize the regional and international rivalries among global and regional actors. First of all, Kashmir can be described as one of the most important topics between India and Pakistan, because India and Pakistan fought several times with each other over the dispute over the control in the Kashmir region. Within this context, last week attack happened in the Indian occupied Kashmir region, and Indian decision makers blamed Pakistan for this deadly attack, and Indians are right now calling for military action against Pakistan. And some Indian decision makers are taking steps against Pakistan. Pakistan strongly denied any involvement in the latest attack in the Kashmir region. Pakistani decision makers and Pakistani government have been calling for joint investigation into the deadly incident, but Indians are refusing to investigate this deadly attack happened in the Kashmir region. Pakistan is also taking its own steps to encounter security threats coming from India. This is the domestic aspects of the Kashmir issue. On the other hand, as you know, last week U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance paid an official visit to India. He met with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to discuss bilateral relationships between the United States and India. They also exchanged views on the geopolitical developments in the Asia-Pacific region. But as we know, United States is right now desperately needing India to counter rising China in the Asia-Pacific region. I think it's not a coincidence with J.D. Vance's visit to India and latest attack in the Indian occupied Kashmir region. Some Pakistani political analysts and security experts are accusing India of engaging false flag operation in the region to legitimize their military actions in the Asia-Pacific to escalate the geopolitical tensions. I think both sides are supposed to come together and prioritize diplomacy to escape any further geopolitical escalation in the region. I hope common sense will prevail over retaliatory statements, and peace will come to the Kashmir region in the forthcoming future.
Javed, you've been following the events from the Pakistani capital. Now, tell me about these allegations. Why has India been blaming Pakistan for the attacks in Pahalgam, which is in the Indian-occupied Kashmir? Why is India blaming Pakistan, and what sort of evidence does India possess right now through which it can target Pakistan?
I think at the heart of the allegations that India has come up with against Pakistan is a long-held suspicion, is a long-held hostility between two countries. It's not that they have some kind of evidence about the involvement of Pakistan. It is the hostility, the pattern of relationship that both countries have been having. Both countries have been accusing each other of supporting terrorism. India has been blaming Pakistan for supporting Kashmiri freedom fighters. I mean, it's been the long story. And in a similar fashion, Pakistan has been blaming India that it has been supporting terrorism in its southwestern Balochistan province, bordering with Afghanistan and Iran. So that long hostility and that lack of trust deficit is the core reason on the basis of which India has been blaming that since this attack has happened, so since in the past there were similar incidents where they think that Pakistan is involved, so that is the reason that they are blaming Pakistan. Now, Pakistan has been asking for evidence. If there is any actionable evidence, let me repeat the word of actionable, which means it should not be based on hearsay. It means that it should not be based on any coercive tactics under duress. If you torture somebody and ask him to give a statement against Pakistan, it should be through verifiable mechanism. That is something which India is not coming up with. There was a similar situation back in 2019 when there were 3 to 4 dozens people, probably there were 44 India's paramilitary members of the paramilitaries were killed in the disputed Kashmir region, and as was expected, the allegation was leveled against Pakistan, and then India carried out strikes inside Pakistan, and no one was killed. But then Pakistan retaliated. Pakistan shot down 2 of its warplanes, and one of the pilot was arrested. And it was a great source of humiliation for India. Now, India basically has been trying to create an impression that it is one of the great powers in the world, which is not the case. It wants to treat Pakistan the way Israel has been treating Palestinians. So there are nonsensical commentary being given in Indian news channels, which does not make sense. So I think by maximum they now want to repeat of what was done in 2019 in a manner that India does not basically get humiliated the way it faced back in 2019. But there is a bigger picture which is developing, that both countries are nuclear armed, and there is a disparity in conventional weapons between Pakistan and India. India has an edge when it comes to the conventional weaponries, but Pakistan has an edge over India when it comes to unconventional weapons, using tactical nuclear weapons and the other nuclear warheads. Now, I think the threshold is very limited when it comes to the application of the nuclear weapons. You may recall in 1999, when there was a brief conflict over Kashmir, Pakistan had deployed its nuclear warheads. And I think in a similar fashion in 2019, when Pakistan was expecting more attacks from India, Pakistan had also deployed nuclear warheads. So Indians don't understand this. We have to see the bigger picture, which is in India. India, in a very systematic manner, remember, it is a RSS government in India, which was declared a terrorist organization in the past. RSS government has been pursuing a Hindutva agenda, which means they have a declared public policy that they want to annex Pakistan, annex Bangladesh, annex Afghanistan, Indonesia, and even so much so that they want to go to the 2 holy sites of Muslims in Saudi Arabia and want to occupy it. So this is their declared agenda. And for that to happen, they have already made legislation in India whereby what they are doing, they are forcing everybody in India to display their name on their restaurant or on their business centers, and then they have launched a campaign to boycott the businesses of the Muslims. So the business of the Muslims in India, that is getting deserted. They are asking everyone in the streets that, are you a Muslim? And if he says yes, what is your father's name? Then they ask, what is your grandfather's name? What is your great grandfather's name? Trying to detect if this family was converted from Hinduism to Islam. And then if he does not revert, the man is killed on the spot. This has been happening in India. The mosques are being bulldozed everywhere, and in a similar fashion, there have been communal violence. Hundreds of people are killed every next year. So in a very systematic manner, they are expelling Muslims from India. And then they have also come up with a legislation whereby they are hosting Hindus from elsewhere in the world in a similar fashion that apartheid state Israel has. They're accommodating Jews from everywhere in the world. They are also accommodating Hindus from anywhere in the region. So again, the situation is going from bad to the worst. Pakistan has already said that it is prepared to retaliate in a manner that India probably would not be expecting.
Javed, tell me about the Pakistani response. We saw the National Security Council convening last week. They took some decisions. Pakistan's top military and political leaders have also met. They've made some statements. Modi says that whoever these terrorists are, the Indian government is going to find them and punish them accordingly. So how are you looking at the reaction from the Pakistani government?
Well, Pakistan's reaction is more in a retaliatory mode. It is not initiating a war. It is not creating conditions where India can attack. But India, in case comes up with an attack, then I think it will be horrible for both countries. Both countries have the capacity and the capability to potentially annihilate each other and partially destroy the region. But they don't have the capacity to win any war now. The days are over when both countries used to fight conventional battles. So I think Pakistan has already said that by revoking 1960s water treaty, which was brokered by the World Bank, India has committed an act of war, which means, technically speaking, the war has already started. Because if India builds up more dam, or if India builds up a kind of a structure where it can stop waters flowing into Pakistan, and then Pakistan has already said there are vibes coming out from Islamabad that they would carry out attack inside India to make it sure that it gets its share of water. And I think since India has not built up that structure, but they have already built so many dams, they have now released a huge quantity of the water into the rivers flowing into Pakistan to cause an artificial flood. So India is basically provoking Pakistan to retaliate, and then obviously there could be a war. And the reason being is that the RSS government, very core part of the so-called BJP government, they are fascist, they are fanatics. And you may recall in 2000, Narendra Modi, when he was the chief minister of one of its state, Gujarat, he was the mastermind killing of 2,000 Muslims. They were killed everywhere. His entry was banned in the USA. India is a fanatical state, but given the fact that it's a big market for the West, that is why we do not see much voices coming from the West. But remember, if there is a war between India and Pakistan, the entire trade of the world would be disrupted, their investment would be disrupted. It will be a recipe for disaster, not only for the region, but also for the economy of everybody in the West.
Mustafa, coming back to you, tell me, how is Turkey navigating through this crisis? What has the Turkish government said? And we all know Turkey's position when it comes to India and Pakistan. Turkey has been a strong supporter of the Kashmir issue as well. So how is Turkey looking at the situation?
Umar, as you know, last week Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan welcomed Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif in the Turkish capital of Ankara. And as we know that Kashmir issue was on the agenda between Turkish and Pakistani decision makers, I think Turkey's position here is very clear. Turkey is strongly supporting Pakistan's position over the Kashmir region. But on the other hand, Turkey has been also enjoying close ties with India in several fields, ranging from trade and economy to military and politics. I think both Pakistan and India should rely on Turkey's balanced approach to the Kashmir problem. As you know, Turkey is always calling for regional solutions for regional problems. Within this context, Turkey is calling for dialogue and diplomacy between India and Pakistan to deal with their bilateral disputes over Kashmir region. Maybe Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan will engage phone conversations with his counterparts from Pakistan and India. I think Turkey's facilitator or mediator role within the context of Kashmir dispute will help India and Pakistan to resolve their bilateral disputes. And as you also know, both nations have nuclear powers in the region. Maybe in conventional terms, India can be considered much more powerful than Pakistan. But one nuke, I think, changed everything. Within this context, I think both sides, with the help of Turkey, will prioritize diplomacy and dialogue to de-escalate the current geopolitical situation in the region. And it will, I think, yield positive results for both regional stability and tranquility in the Asia-Pacific region, and for international peace and security because I think that if one side initiates war against other side, I think it will also trigger nuclear warfare between two neighboring countries, and it will put international peace and stability at risks. I think if Indians right now think that the international community, especially Western powers, are behind them, I think they will mislead the current geopolitical tensions in the region. I hope that Indians will find a common way and common sense with Pakistanis, and they will de-escalate the situation instead of fueling the tensions in the Asia-Pacific region.
Javed, let's talk about diplomacy. In the past few days, Iran has sent out a message to both India and Pakistan saying that it's ready to mediate the rising tensions. The Indian foreign minister has held phone calls with his Saudi counterpart as well. And the Pakistani government has also held phone calls with the Chinese foreign minister and the British foreign secretary, David Lammy. So how are you viewing the diplomacy, the measures taken by these countries, especially China? How is China viewing this situation?
I think to begin with China, it's the most important factor. When India thinks that they can attack Pakistan, India must consider the Chinese factor. You may recall in 2020, when India had forcibly annexed Kashmir, then after that, China had started to having a border tension with India, and China had killed around 20 soldiers of India at the borders because part of Kashmir is also disputed with China. So it's a triangular. But more of the noises we hear from Pakistan and India, but China is also part of this triangular. Pakistan had resolved part of its dispute by handing over parts of the territory to China in early 60s. But in case of India, that dispute lingers on. Now, if there is an attack on Pakistan, and if this escalation reaches to an alarming point, China would certainly intervene. China has been investing tens of billions of US dollars in Pakistan. It has an alternative supply trade route from Gwadar port in southwest of Pakistan in Arabian Sea to its western part. So China basically fears that in the South China Sea, which is in the southeast of Asia, it is already building up artificial islands there, setting up its military bases, because USA has an alliance with the Japan, Australia, and India. Because now big powers are fearing that there may be a bigger conflict. And I think in that context, China has a role to play. Because China has also its at least disputes. At least there is another state with India where China has a claim, and in a similar fashion in Kashmir. So I think China would intervene in case this border tension escalates, and even if it doesn't come out on the surface, behind the scene, in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of sharing all kind of intelligence, in terms of providing satellite help in any guided missile attack on India, China's help is going to be very forthcoming, and also in terms of, more importantly, very sustained supplies of the weapons from China. Pakistan is largely not dependent, Pakistan so far as military hardwares are concerned, onto China and partially on Turkey. Now I think very little part is also Pakistan is dependent onto the US, but I think that's no longer a big game. So I think China's role is extremely important. The other factors, I think we can ignore, but given the fact that China is there, I think there are many assessments going on that if any iota of rationality prevails in New Delhi, I think India would not be able to carry out attack on Pakistan, because India knows that there would be certainly a retaliation. What would be the shape of that retaliation? It is not known. But given the fact that there is a RSS government, which is a fanatical government, which has an expansionist agenda, which never conceded to the fact that Pakistan is an independent state, it has always said that it would annex Pakistan. So you can expect any madness coming out of New Delhi. We should not forget that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a part and parcel of RSS wing. And they have a very nasty agenda, not against Pakistan, but also against the rest of the nation in the region.
Mustafa, you mentioned in the beginning of the program that J.D. Vance just visited India. So how is the United States viewing what's happening between India and Pakistan? Do you believe that President Trump would be willing to get involved in another fight? Because look at what he's said about Syria, that, Syria's problems should be left for the Syrian government. And now he hasn't criticized Pakistan directly because it's not Pakistan's fault in the first place. These are just allegations which India says that Pakistan has been linked with terrorism, and it's been training all these terrorist groups in the occupied Kashmir. So how is the United States looking at the situation? We know that ties are extremely close, and this could be, we really don't know how it's going to react right now because China is being involved as well. So if China sides with Pakistan and India sides with, and the United States sides with India, what sort of an impact could that bring? Because the region is already facing so many problems. There's Yemen, there's Palestine, there's Iran. How is the United States looking to navigate through this ongoing development?
During his meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi last week, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance reiterated United States' strong support for India's regional and international positions. And right now, I think Indians think that the Western powers are behind them. But on the other hand, China is strongly reaffirming its strong support for Pakistan's territorial integrity and political sovereignty. As I said in my previous conversation, right now there are two aspects of current geopolitical tensions in the region. One aspect is a dispute between India and Pakistan, and the second one is the rivalry between the United States and China. Right now, the United States desperately needs some regional powers in the Asia-Pacific to encounter threat coming from the rising China. Within this context, as you know, Donald Trump is pursuing a tough stance against China. United States initiated trade wars with China, and China is taking its own retaliatory steps against tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. And right now there is ongoing rivalry between China and the United States. I think the United States is right now trying to use India as an proxy actor in the region to fuel tensions, to affect China's rise. I think China thinks that if anything happens in its backyard, it will affect its economic and political developments. Within this context, I think China will play an important role in terms of de-escalating the geopolitical tensions between India and Pakistan. While supporting Pakistan's position in the region, I think both actors should take China's important position into the consideration if they want to de-escalate the situation. Otherwise, as we know that if anything happens in terms of militarily in the region, it will put regional peace and stability at risk. Within this context, I think right now Pakistanis and Indians are hesitating to launch a big-scale war between them. But some reports are indicating that there are local exchange of fire between Pakistani and Indian military forces over the border areas. It will not help both Pakistan and India to, in terms of de-escalating the geopolitical tensions. I hope diplomacy and dialogue between regional and international stakeholders will prevail over war statements coming from the Indian sides, and they will find a common way to de-escalate the situation and to bring long-standing peace and stability to the Kashmir region, because as we also know that people living in the Kashmir region are calling for dialogue and diplomacy between regional stakeholders, and they are strongly calling for peace and dignity for the people living in the Kashmir region.
Javed, I want to discuss the Indus Waters Treaty with you. I want to touch upon that as well. Now, this was brokered in 1960 by the World Bank, and India and Pakistan signed this treaty to get a fair share of distribution of water from the Indus River. Now, when India stated that it's going to cut the water supply from the Indus River, people started to panic. But there's another aspect to this as well. It's not going to do any damage in the short run because India does not have the capacity or the dams or the reservoirs needed to stop the flow of the Indus River. So how are you looking at this particular stance that the Indian government has taken, that it's going to stop the flow of water from the Indus River? And what are the implications or what are the problems that Pakistan could face in the long run if India continues to threaten Pakistan in such ways?
I think to begin with, let me explain the legal position. Under this treaty, which was brokered by the World Bank in 1960, this treaty is irrevocable. It cannot be revoked. It cannot be shelved. So if there have to be certain changes within the terms and conditions of this treaty, I think those have to be settled between two countries with each other's consent. So India basically, even before this conflict, long ago has been saying that they would revoke it. And then there was not a situation like the one that we are right now in. So many people in Pakistan, they have an assessment that India perhaps has conducted a false flag operation to create a situation where it could justify revoking this shared water treaty. Now, Pakistan is a low riparian country. The water flows into Pakistan, and Pakistan's agriculture is significantly dependent onto the water coming from India and other parts of the region. So in case India blocks that flow of the water, that means it would hurt Pakistan's economy. I think we have heard very strong statements from the opposition leaders, like People's Party leaders. Bilawal Bhutto has been saying that in these rivers, if the water does not flow, then the blood of Indians would flow. And this is a very harsh statement. That indicates that to what an extent Pakistan can possibly go to protect its water. For the time being, I don't foresee any war on the water issue because India does not have a kind of infrastructure it requires to immediately shut down the entire stream of water into Pakistan. But it has already started fiddling with it, which something I earlier on indicated, by releasing an excessive amount of water into Pakistani side of the rivers, which may cause an artificial flood in Pakistan. So India will continue to play some kind of mischievous role, and that is a design to create conditions also where both India and Pakistan can sit together and renegotiate the terms and conditions. Because India now believes that these terms and conditions, they are not favoring India. So I think that is a part of the problem. India at this particular point of time has been knocking down the Western capitals, telling them that the terrorism is coming from Pakistan and it needs a kind of a support from the West to carry out attack inside Pakistan. And then they want West to pressurize Pakistan diplomatically to not retaliate. Pakistan would retaliate. Knowing Asim Munir, the Pakistan's army chief, he's a very hot-headed man. Arbitrarily, sometimes he takes decisions. And I don't think if India attacks, he would listen to any Western pressure. In case of Iran, you may recall early last year, in January last year, Iran carried out a missile attack in southwest of Pakistan, saying that some of the militant groups were hiding there. Then Pakistan retaliated, killed, I think, over a dozen members of terrorist group known as BLA inside Iranian part of Balochistan, because Balochistan is basically divided into two countries. The other side is also known as the Balochistan-Sistan province, which belongs to Iran. So Pakistan had carried out attack. Even Pakistan did not spare a friendly country. Pakistan doesn't have any hostility with Iran. In case of India, I think General Ashraf Munir was having a very tough time from the mainstream of jailed opposition leader Imran Khan, who has been jailed on politically motivated charges by the military. I think he's now at the domestic scene is that he's trying to unify the nation and creating a condition where people would forget the kind of the uprising that the opposition parties have created. I think partially there is a success story, but again, at the end of the day, he's not going to get what he really looking for, because once this border tension is over, the situation would return back to the same situation, same level. So in that context, what I'm trying to tell you that Pakistan's response is going to be lethal. Reason being is that is the track record of Pakistan, that in 2019, that the day India had carried out attack, the nuclear body, nuclear watchdog, the nuclear regulatory authority, they had a meeting. They had taken a decision that in case this border tension escalate, Pakistan would use its tactical nuclear warheads. So this is a dangerous scenario. Nowhere you have heard that the nuclear armed countries would pick up fight with each other. They would resolve their issues bilaterally. In case of India, it is not willing to talk to Pakistan. The SAARC, which is a regional forum of the South Asia, it remains dysfunctional, because India has been saying that Pakistan is supporting terrorism, so it would not participate in the SAARC conference. In a worst manner, India has been supporting terrorism in Pakistan. Thousands of people in Pakistan's southwestern Balochistan province have been killed. Indians were short of admitting it. Many of their, if you look at this leaders, their statements, you will come to know that indirectly they are admitting it. And similarly, the way they conducted operations in Canada and partially also in the USA, that shows that India's terrorist wing is operating everywhere. Now, I was reading one of the statements of a former RA chief. His name is something like Daulat. He was saying that in Kashmir, in disputed Kashmir region, India basically created militant wings there, militant groups there, what they call to counter ISI's network in Kashmir. So India has its own militant groups. And that is why we have heard so much from none other than Indian officials in the past, that when in a similar fashion, there were similar situations in the past, India conducted false flag operation to create a situation where Pakistan could be diplomatically isolated. Partially, it succeeded because Pakistan had a very strong, thick relations with the Middle Eastern Arab monarchs. Now, I think India has also captured the imagination of Arab monarchs. They are investing more in India than Pakistan. Partially, Pakistan is also responsible because of the incompetence and the political crisis. But in a broader picture, right now, the entire game of India is, their focus is to get the support of the West and carry out some kind of attack. And then each time, whenever there have been border tension with Pakistan, you will see there are some elections in India. Similarly, in India right now, there are going to be elections after a couple of weeks, perhaps. And then Modi needs something to tell their people, and that is Pakistan is something where he stokes hate among people, and he has been winning elections on the basis of causing a public resentment against Pakistan. Unlike Pakistan, whenever there are elections in Pakistan, India is not an issue in Pakistan. Pakistan is the least bothered about. But in case of Prime Minister Modi, he always makes Pakistan an issue, and he needs a bigger conflict, or at least some kind of smaller conflict, and then by using the West, pressurizing Pakistan not to retaliate. In case of India, Pakistan doesn't listen to anyone.
Political analyst Javed Rana, thank you for joining us from the Pakistani capital, and thank you for updating us on the latest developments as well. A News editor Mustafa Kojakanar, thank you for being on the program as well. It was a pleasure to have you and to indulge in such a conversation again.
Thanks for hosting me.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. As tensions continue to rise, the path to peace remains uncertain, but crucial for regional and global stability. We will continue to follow all these developments closely here on Turkey's Diplomacy. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.